The views and opinions expressed in the Distracted Librarians podcast do not necessarily reflect those of Bloomfield Township Public Library, Bloomfield Community Television, the Birmingham Area Cable Board, or its producers or production staff.
Hello and welcome. We're the Distracted Librarians, your friendly neighborhood bookworms who can't resist the siren call of movies, video games, music, and everything else in the pop culture universe.
Think of this podcast as a digital campfire where we share our latest obsessions, analyze the hidden depths of our favorite distractions, and maybe rediscover the joy of reading in between.
So, if you're a fellow media junkie, a book lover, or someone looking for a fun, engaging escape from your daily grind, you've come to the right place.
Sit back, relax, and prepare to get delightfully distracted with us.
Hi, everybody. This episode of the Distracted Librarians is going to be all about stories that we didn't know were adaptations. All right. So, movies that I didn't realize were books before seeing them. Shrek. Did you know that Shrek was a book?
What?
Shrek is a picture book.
Yeah.
I only know this because I bought it for the Wonder Book collection.
Yes.
And I have no idea. Like, I haven't read it. It exists in our collection. I haven't read it yet. And I am really curious because I know that's one of my things is it pulls together all these fairy tale stories.
Yeah.
And that's how I think of it as a retelling.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, is that all in the book? Or was that added for the movie? I don't know.
I
have
don't
to
know.
read the book.
I have seen it in our collection. And I thought, oh, that's weird because that looks like the guy from the thing, and maybe this is like all interconnected. But it was written so long ago that I'm just like, this isn't something that I really want to read right now.
We are less than a minute into this and my mind is blown.
We're coming in hot. So yeah, Shrek was a picture book.
I'm reading this afternoon.
Well, let's all read it.
I need
Maybe
you to
we
know
can
this.
start a further discussion on that. Yeah, no, that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, like I said, that one is one, you see so many things that are fairy tale adaptations in various forms. Mm-hmm. Obviously, like, Disney does a lot with it, but you also see things like a lot of teen movies. You see a Cinderella story or Sydney White, and those are adaptations that take things to a different place, but you also see these things that mash all of those fairy tales together into one thing and then make them exist in the same world.
Yes.
Yeah, my mind went straight to Ralph Breaks the Internet and the scene with all of the Disney princesses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you see it even in other books. One of my favorite book series is The Enchanted Forest Chronicles.
Okay.
It starts with Dealing with Dragons. It's by Patricia C. Reed, and it pulls a bunch of fairy tales together.
Oh, nice.
And just, it's got its own story that just encounters all of these fairy tales in other places.
Sure. Which is like, my kids are so obsessed with Descendants. It's such a very similar thing where we have all these stories that are kind of just all coming together to see what happens.
I love those movies. Those are so good.
I haven't seen the movies, but I was so obsessed with Once Upon a Time that I'm surprised I haven't seen the movies.
That's another one. I forget that show existed. That was a time.
All right, so what else? What else, you guys? Movies that came from books that we might not know. What do you think?
I think that just the John Wick films are just various portions of Greek mythology all mashed together. You've got portions of the 12 Labors of Heracles and the Odyssey and the Iliad. I mean, his wife's name is Helen. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. And
there are certain characters that are pulled or that are named particularly from characters in Greek mythology that serve certain purposes too. So I don't know that they're trying to be subtle about it, but I was watching the first John Wick movie with my brother, and I was like, "Did you know that this is the 12 Labors of Heracles?" And he was like, "Can we just watch the movie?"
Yeah, I think when I watched that series, my husband was out of town, so I was like, I'm gonna sit down and watch the 3 John Wick movies that were available at the time.
Yeah.
And so, like, just made a weekend of it or whatever, and was just wrapped and like loving everything
Yes.
about it,
Yes.
but also from the standpoint where I had absolutely no idea that it could have come from anything else, like just taking it at face value and loving it for what it was. So that just makes it even more exciting for me.
Yeah.
Now I want to like watch them all again so I can like pick out the little pieces.
Yeah, I do kind of feel like it's just like, well, it's been a year since I've watched John Wick. Time to watch John Wick again because I had the same experience as you. Like we watched the first one, and then we're like, oh wow, that was really cool. And I said, well, you have the second one here too, so we could just watch it. I mean, if you're not doing anything. So, but I had the same experience. It really like it's a simple story, but all the elements like pull you in.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I mean, and who doesn't love a good revenge movie?
Oh, totally.
I in no way know what these movies are about.
Oh, really?
Yeah, same.
Oh man, it's a big thing. Like John Wick is this retired assassin, but he's like the best of the best. Like people don't call him in unless it's like something that's impossible to do. And he's retired because he got married and like this whole thing. His wife dies, and then he gets like this puppy, and I believe it was a gift from his wife or
Yes.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like these idiots break into his house and kill his puppy.
And steal his car.
And he, and his car. His car is like the most important thing in the world to him besides this puppy and like the memory of his dead wife.
Yes.
So he comes out of retirement,
Yes.
and then all chaos happens after that. It's great.
Literally all I knew about the movie was Keanu Reeves and there's a dog.
Yes.
Well, you're not wrong.
What more do you need to know? That's like absolutely watch the movie.
And there is a fight scene in a library.
Yes, that is in the third one.
Excellent.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
It's good stuff.
I know movies.
Love that. All right, Killian.
So I think my thing with movies like this or anything like this tends to be the sheer number of things that are based off Shakespeare. Really commonly people know that The Lion King is based off of Hamlet, but I remember when someone pointed that out to me and I just thought about it and I was just like, complete like mind-blowing moment of, oh my gosh, you're right.
Yeah.
But so many things are taken from Shakespeare. And again, I'm going to come back to teen movies for this all the time because so many teen movies are adaptations of something, whether it's fairy tales, Jane Austen, or Shakespeare. 10 Things I Hate About You, a classic. Taming the Shrew.
Yeah.
And a lot of people know that one, but I think people find it out like later, or at least I know I found it out a lot later. I was just like, yeah, cool, I like this movie. And then people are like, did you know that's Shakespeare? And I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Also because Taming of the Shrew isn't one of the more common ones that gets read, at least for a high school curriculum.
True. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
And
so I wonder if, like, is this a way of people just trying to, like, make Shakespeare palatable for new generations? Is that what it is? Like, because it seems to be a theme, right? Like, it's a thing that is happening over and over again, and it's not blatant. It's not obvious that that's what's going on, but, like, in a way, there's the story, there's, like, the guts and all of the parts of it, and these teenagers or young adults, like, love it.
I think there's a palatability aspect to it, but I think it's also just, we'd mentioned earlier, there are only so many stories that exist in the world.
Sure.
And, they have to be
Recycled.
retold and reworked in a little bit. So,
Yeah, we call these things Shakespeare adaptations, but Shakespeare got those stories from somewhere too. And a lot of times we might not know where all of those came from for Shakespeare, but maybe someone does. I don't know.
so I think a lot of the time it's just a really easy well to turn back to. Like, I don't think anyone went into the Lion King saying, I love Hamlet, let's remake that.
Yeah.
But they went into it saying this is a good story that the kids would have no basis for and we can really sneak our way in.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, because then you have the bones of something that's already good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
I think there's also, because you see the same stories are the ones that get retold. Like everybody loves some sort of Cinderella story. But there's something about a Cinderella story that people can relate to, people can put themselves into and really enjoy. And I think that's what kind of a lot of these come back to is what are the stories that people can relate to? What are the stories that people are going to enjoy. And then we just tell those over and over again in different ways.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because ultimately some of those things are not, like Cinderella is not about a glass slipper. Cinderella is about disconnection and disenfranchisement and feeling ill-treated by people who should not be doing that, family members or whatever. I mean, and that's a total blanket statement of the story of Cinderella, but also the elements that create the plot are not always the themes that people connect with. True. I mean, like, I might not connect with, riding to a ball in a pumpkin coach, but
I want that pumpkin coat. It's the best.
it is. But
I don't want glass shoes. I would break them so quickly.
No, I mean, whose great idea was that anyway? It is so unrealistic.
Originally, they were fur in one of the versions.
Well, fur, sure. Give me the fur.
nice and toasty.
Did anyone else go to apple-bottom jeans, boots with the fur?
Thank you for that.
The whole club was looking at her.
Yeah.
Drew. She hit the floor.
Apple-bottom
Next thing you know.
I now want a Cinderella retelling to that song.
And she became the main belle of the ball. And now we can only imagine Cinderella with the apple-bottom jeans, the boots with the fur. That would be beautiful.
Breaking news, Flo Rida is a fairy tale adaptation.
Wow.
You heard it here first.
We want the royalties, and this comes through and is hugely popular, and they make a film of it. We thought of it first.
All right, Drew, after that, give us an adaptation.
I was always a huge fan of Easy A with Emma Stone, and it being a pretty blatant Scarlet Letter retelling.
Yeah.
They're reading Scarlet Letter in school. It's what gives her the whole inspiration for it.
Sure.
But I loved that version of the retelling because it gave Hester the power back in that whole relationship.
Yeah.
Has everyone seen Easy A? I can
Yes.
describe either way.
Yes.
Okay. But that's one of my favorite like modern classics that I go back to in terms of like what was popular when I was a teen or new adult.
Yeah. See, I read The Scarlet Letter and as a classic. I liked it, but it ended up on so many lists of like most hated books. And
It's one that I struggled with when I
it's
was
hard
reading
to
it in
it's
school.
hard to read, but I think like once you get past the language, because the way that it's written is just not really modern in any capacity, it was a decent book. So finally having a movie that's not The Scarlet Letter with Demi Moore and Gary Oldman and making it into something that's for teens or for another generation, that's pretty cool. Yeah. All right, another one for me is Blade Runner. I saw Blade Runner, and the movie's awesome, and it's amazing and wonderful. Didn't know that it came from a book, and that feels kind of dumb to me. That I feel stupid that I didn't realize it was from a book because it's so good. And then, so the book is Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick.
Right.
And the book is also awesome, which I love. So, like, that was a thing where, like, I think the movie came out, and unless you were a big science fiction person, you may not have realized that it came initially from this book that has a completely different title that doesn't seem like it could be related at all in any way. And they made this amazing, really cool movie out of it. Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford. Yes.
So good. All right, Emily. You have another one for us?
I think some of the ones that I was thinking of are ones that I mentioned in other episodes, like The Road to El Dorado, for example, is basically an adaptation of The Man Who Would Be King, which is a short story by Rudyard Kipling. And there was a film of The Man Who Would Be King with Sean Connery and Michael Caine, which I've also seen a long time ago. And then for some reason, I was reading Kipling. And then I was like, but wait, this is The Road to El Dorado. But of course, it's the other way around.
Okay.
A Bug's Life, Pixar,
Yep.
which in the 90s is basically Seven Samurai or The Magnificent Seven.
I'm going to need you to explain
This
that one.
completely blows my mind.
It is because, okay, so I don't remember everybody's name.
Bug
all the
1,
characters
Bug 2, and Bug 3. Grasshopper.
We're with you.
The ant, the other ant.
Ant and
But the grasshopper played by Kevin Spacey comes into the anthill and is like, I live here now with all of my grasshoppers. And Flick, I believe, is the protagonist ant. And he's like, wait, you can't do that. And so they're like, yes, we can, Flick. And so they move all
flicked him.
They and so Flick is like, we got to fight back against Kevin Spacey and co. And so he rounds up a bunch of other insects to denounce or to throw out the grasshoppers, which is just basically. I have not seen Seven Samurai, but I have seen the Magnificent Seven, and so that's just like we have to get rid of like Eli Wallach and co. And so that's the
Wow.
yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I need to rewatch this movie now.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to be the good thing about this podcast is that any of our listeners and us included are going to be like, oh, wait, now I need to watch that again because
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Love that.
I also just haven't seen A Bug's Life in like 15 years.
I
and
haven't
that's-
either, and now that I've said it was Kevin Spacey, I'm like, I really hope that I'm not wrong about that.
Oh,
'cause it's going to be embarrassing.
I think it
if
is.
Okay.
My kids still really like that movie, and so it pops up from time to time.
This is a total aside, but the one grasshopper thumper, like, frightened me so bad as a child. I'm like, I can't. Nope. It's just it's much scarier than I was like, oh, this will be a story about bugs. How wonderful! And then I'm like,
Oh, and now
Mom, I'm scared. Like,
now they have made A Bug's Life, the real Bug's Life, and it's real bugs, and it's like I don't even know. It's kind of crazy.
Is it like the CGI Lion King or?
No, it's they're using real bugs to like kind of sort of create this story. It's really
bug actors.
bug actors. Yes. So yeah, if you thought that
look into this immediately.
the animated was terrifying, using real bugs adds a whole new level of because nature's like
Nature's scary.
scary stuff.
Yeah.
Killian.
So we with Easy A and Scarlet Letter, we talked about like with that one, like I struggled with reading the Scarlet Letter, and we talked about it simplifying things for you, or for kids. Things I didn't know until I was like looking into things for this episode. The Dark Knight is a tale of two cities.
What?
According to the internet. And I'm like, I've never seen The Dark Knight, but I also have never read A Tale of Two Cities because I can't handle Charles Dickens' writing ever. My only knowledge of like Oliver Twist is Oliver and Company because I simply won't read Dickens. I simply will not. And I'm like, okay. So if I go watch The Dark Knight, will I vaguely understand the concept behind A Tale of Two Cities enough to actually
Get through it.
vaguely understand what it is? I'm still not going to read it. I simply won't. I got a whole English degree, and you cannot make me read Dickens.
We all have our lines in the sand.
Yeah.
You know what? And that's yours, and
really
we respect
true.
it. We
Yeah.
respect it.
Absolutely.
But I would like to understand the stories, just to have that awareness. And I'm like, okay,
Well,
there are other ways I can get to it. Great.
And I think that's what I always feel like a warm fuzzy about adaptations is like I feel like I'm in the know. It's
Yeah.
just sort of
Yeah.
like, oh, I get
if
it.
you're
like,
aware
you know,
of
yeah.
it, when it's a mystery or a surprise, then you're just like, wait, what?
For some reason, I feel like ignorant, which you shouldn't. Like it's okay if you didn't know. It's not a moral it's not a moral imperative that like, oh yes, I am aware of this adaptation. Da da da. Like, you don't have to feel superior or inferior because you have an awareness of something. But I always feel like I can get all the little details and the little like I had no idea that The Dark Knight was.
Maybe
And I've seen
there's
that movie a bunch of times.
Maybe there's a YouTube video.
Someone's
about
going to come in and be like,
explaining
it
the whole
absolutely is not. This was a lie. And I'll be like, okay. Like I said, I got it off the internet, and I have not
But you know what?
fact-checked this.
I also am not a huge Dickens like person, so I am with you. Like I will believe that it is. I have not read A Tale of Two Cities, so I'm not going to claim to know that it is or not.
Yeah, Charles Dickens and I have not gotten along since I first had to read Dickens, and ninth grade. And I mean, that's a story for another episode, but
The lore of
it's
Killian's.
a whole thing.
Drew?
Yeah. In the vein of early 2010s ABC shows, because I talked about Once Upon a Time previously, Revenge was a
Yes.
phenomenal TV show from like 10, 15 years ago that was a kind of Monte Cristo retelling.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah.
I did not finish that show, but I loved it so much when I was watching it. And now I want to go back and actually watch the whole thing.
So season 1 is among some of the best television I think has ever existed.
Really?
I was obsessed with it. The show gets a little convoluted the more the characters mix, but
Which is very much the Count of Monte Cristo, because everything is all
but the
convoluted.
the way they handled the first season of this like rich girl showing up to the Hamptons and just spoiling everyone's plans from the sidelines, the artistic draw of the red Sharpie at the end of every episode, it was perfection.
Nice.
That's very cool.
Very, very cool.
It shortlists my list of shows that had like perfect season 1s and then got a little too big for themselves,
Okay.
which also features Once Upon a Time, frankly.
And that can be so devastating, but it also can be really funny to watch once like you know what's happened and you've come to terms with it. It's just like watching these shows go completely sideways and it's just like what has happened?
It's my emotional support train wreck, and I love it. Like I exist in Once Upon a Time season 3 permanently. The Peter Pan storyline, hilarious to me because it's so bad.
Another one I've got to go back and rewatch because I never finished that one either. And I simply want to know how these shows end, even if it is a train wreck. I want to know. I want to witness it.
The Princess Bride. I watched the movie and did not realize there was a book. And the funny thing is the grandpa's reading from a book. You think that that would have been enough of a hint that it probably came from a book.
Yeah.
But the movie was like, I don't know, I watched it when it came out because I'm that old. And the story is so epic and wonderful and lovely. And I think they did such a great job. I hope they never remake it. And yeah, didn't know it was a book.
I didn't know that one was a book when I first saw it. Like I love that movie. That is truly a wonderful movie.
That's the Warm Cozies.
And when I did find out it was a book, read the book. And the book is good.
Okay.
I like the movie better.
Oh.
Which people look at me in shock when I say, no, I like the movie better. I think it did such a good job of figuring out what was important and putting that together. In reading the book, there were things that I'm just like, I don't need this here. Like it doesn't need to be. So that is a good one.
Nice. All right. Any other adaptations to discuss?
Oh, I think one of us mentioned this before. Over the Garden Wall. Have we all seen Over the Garden Wall?
I have not seen it.
Oh, Drew, tell us all about Over the Garden Wall. I know I brought it up, but you can tell about it.
No, Over the Garden Wall is a 10-episode Cartoon Network cartoon from, I don't know, 10 years ago?
I think so.
And it's about two brothers who go into the woods to get a lantern? What do they do in the woods?
The first episode is they're in the woods and they are looking for a way out of the woods.
Yeah.
And getting a lantern is part of it because it is very dark.
Okay.
And then as they get deeper and deeper into the woods, things get weirder and weirder as they proceed through their strange journey. But
And what is that a retelling of, Emily?
it's Dante's Inferno.
Awesome.
We made it.
It's Dante's Inferno. And I get really excited about it because I don't know why. But I feel like now I've like fixated on Dante's Inferno because I've read it twice. Not that that's like, ooh, look at you. But I've looked into it a little bit to understand it a little bit better, and now I'm like, I feel like it's, what is it, like Baden-Meinhof syndrome, where you see something once and now you start seeing it everywhere because your brain is fixated on it.
For sure.
So like everything is I'm like, everything is Dante's Inferno, and everything is not Dante's Inferno. But then when my brother was like, oh, you should watch Over the Garden Wall. I think you'll really like it. And then we're watching like the first episode, and I'm like, wait a minute, is this what I think it is?
But this is actually Dante's Inferno.
I'm so excited. I was like, finally, I've like gotten onto the thing that actually is. And so, and it is so, now that is such a beautiful, if you have not watched it, it is so beautiful. It is wonderfully, like, the voice acting is incredible. The art and animation is incredible. And the story outside of the source material, just as itself, is so wonderful. It's just a beautiful story. But the little nods that they put into at each stage of the source material is so clever and so careful, and it's not so overblown that you need to have read.
Okay.
But if you have, or if you are familiar with the story, it's just like, yeah, like, those are the little things that you can pick up on. And I think that is such a great adaptation, because it's fun if you know that the genesis of some of those things, but it is so encapsulated in its own
That it's still enjoyable.
that it is still enjoyable, and it tells its own story away from
Cool.
that. It's just so good.
All right. I guess I gotta watch
It's
it.
it's so fun. It's really good for fall.
Oh, okay.
It's like a really good story for fall.
Nice.
It's just
Is it kid friendly?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I would there are a couple
I mean,
of
it is
parts
Dante's Inferno. Here, children, into the ninth layer of hell for you.
yeah.
There are a couple of parts that are like maybe a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it never goes into like
Right.
gory or
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a really good thing to note, is that, like, it's the structure of Inferno, but it's not the story of
Okay.
Inferno. So it definitely is much more like PG,
Okay.
none of the like weird body horror that permeates the poem. But yeah, it's really great. It's really great.
Nice.
Can I kind of shift us a little bit here?
Yeah.
Please do.
Okay. So we've talked about like things that are direct adaptations or like pretty direct. But in like doing a lot of thinking about this for recording this episode, I was thinking about things that are like adaptations of adaptations, or things that kind of adapt multiple stories, and it's like, how closely related are those two original stories? So things like Bridget Jones' Diary is based off of the book Bridget Jones' Diary.
Right. That's right.
Which is based off of Pride and Prejudice.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
So, but like the book is pretty well known, but I think most people know the movie before they know the book, and they just see that movie as that Pride and Prejudice adaptation. Or things like, what was my other one? Oh my goodness. Oh, Mean Girls. Mean Girls was based off a nonfiction book.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Queen Bees and Wannabes.
Bees and Wannabes, yeah.
And so, like, that got adapted from that. I have not read this nonfiction book, but taking a nonfiction and making a fictional story from it, obviously it's not going to be a super close correlation of, like, this is a direct retelling of this book. But then that has also been turned into, like, the stage musical and now the movie musical. And how long before we start seeing Mean Girls as, oh, this is a Mean Girls adaptation?
Right, yeah.
And things like that. But with some of these, it's like, okay, you can also see elements of, there's a little bit of Cinderella in this. There's a little bit of Pygmalion in this. And those two I see get squished together a lot, like with Pretty Woman. People will talk about that being both of those as an adaptation. And I just, like, I don't know that I can think of other things like that. But I wanted to throw it out there and see if, like, any of you guys have anything where you're like, oh, this is an adaptation of an adaptation. Or this is kind of a mix of adaptations.
Well, I think that one thing that we mentioned earlier with The Lion King, where The Lion King is an adaptation of Hamlet, but Hamlet was actually based on legend and history from Scotland or Nordic.
Definitely the,
Yeah. I'm not gonna like die on that hill. I know that I don't have the specific fact of that, but
Northern European.
Yes, very, very old, like the legend and history of Amleth, which the film The Northman is based on that.
Okay.
And so that is historical / legendary narrative that got adapted by Shakespeare, which then has adapted into more. And some of those facts, like Shakespeare is another example, like the Scottish play, Macbeth, for example. Like that was based on historical account, but half the facts are incorrect.
Yeah.
So some of that is like, how are these narratives that we see as the general root of, like Mean Girls, I think is a great example of. Like Mean Girls is such a culturally iconic film and story that, like you said, Killian, like what is going to be the Mean Girls adaptation?
Yeah.
Forgetting completely that the source material was actually this nonfiction book. Same thing with like the Legend of History of Amleth, or like the actual.
Give it enough time and it will turn into something else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But you do kind of wonder, like, all of the stories that we're thinking of,
They all come from somewhere.
they all come from somewhere. But like Greek mythology has its root in wherever. But we read about it, or we study it, or we whatever. But all of that was orally told. So, or not. Not all of it, but a lot of the ways that we think of stories now are based off of oral retellings or historical accounts or whatever. What is the genesis of that really? How do we really know where a lot of this comes from?
Exactly.
I think about that a lot with fairy tales too,
Yes.
because that comes from an oral tradition. And even just looking at early written versions, the Perrault versions versus Grimm's versions, there's variations.
Yeah.
And you can see by things that were adapted later on down the line, kind of where they took their source from of those. It's like, okay, where was the source that came before those? And we'll never know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we can't just go back and find that retold, like oral retelling from
That
forever
bard
ago.
that was singing
Right.
about it
Yeah.
so long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the traveling song person that implanted these like stories in all these different cultures.
And probably told it slightly differently every
Every
time.
single time.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're
So-
human and things change as we go along. Oh, I thought of something that adds even more to the story.
Yeah.
And then it's changed
Exactly.
again.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. All right. Well, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Distracted Librarians.
If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to reach out to us at distracted@btpl.org.
Until then, keep those pages turning and those screens lighting up.
We'll catch you in the next episode.